On the surface, Chris and Karen Pugh seem to have a picture-perfect life.
Chris was tall, fair-haired, nice-looking, and he seemed to love Karen.
She really did seem happy with Chris. She was in love, happy, and very hopeful.
The kids were spotless, the house was spotless. Even doing a 13-hour-a-day working, there was nothing out of place, nothing.
But the cleanest house in town hides some very dirty secrets.
Chris's sisters accused Karen of seeing people.
You start finding out things, and it just don't make sense to you. I really was shocked.
He would change. He was very Jekyll and Hyde.
When I see him, 2 broken legs.
Love may be blind and marriage bliss, but divorce is murder. In 1981, Karen Klee, a young nurse and single mother, meets handsome house contractor Chris Pugh at a local pub in Barry, Wales. They quickly become inseparable. Chris takes Karen's firstborn child, Deanne, under his wing. Karen is smitten.
Karen was saying that Chris was the one. She said he was lovely. She planned to marry him, and he was good with Deanne. He made her happy.
Her family is pleased that she has found a husband.
One, Karen found somebody that she could love, and I thought loved her. And the second is because with a baby, they don't always want to take on baggage, as they put it. But Chris seemed to be all right with Deanne. So in 2 respects, I thought Karen was pretty lucky there to find both worlds, if you like.
Just 2 months after meeting, they are married. And Karen's parents put aside any worries about hasty nuptials.
And I said, have you thought about it? And she said, yes. I said, well, if it's what you want, you've got to pick your own. I can't pick your husband's for you. She was in love, happy, and very hopeful.
Karen wanted to get married, and what her wish was our wish. And I mean, I couldn't at the time think of anything to deter her from it because there was nothing.
Family means a lot to them. Karen is very tight with her parents, and Chris is especially close to his sisters. They are all delighted that the marriage will tie the knot between Chris and Karen and the 2 families forever. The newlyweds waste no time in making a new life together, and in 1982, just 9 months after their wedding, Karen and Chris welcome their son Michael into the family.
Karen was an amazing mother. She was very optimistic. She used to see things from everyone else's point of view. She was very much the family negotiator.
Karen was a very good mother, a lot of time for her children. She always put them first. She always bought her children things. They were well-dressed, clean and tidy.
Every time I went over there, she was always ironing because they would have a certain outfit on through the day and then for some reason get changed. So constant washing and ironing was over Karen's. I remember as I got older, I used to help her out with the ironing because she'd just be stood there for hours with baskets of ironing.
And she crocheted. She used to crochet the most beautiful hats with the big baubles on them in the 80s. And it was beautiful. She had all the patience go in to do it.
Karen also works full-time as a nurse.
She was a very caring person, very patient with people. She had a very good sense of humour. You know, she was, always up to have a laugh and a joke with people. Very enthusiastic.
And Chris is a real catch, and great with the kids.
Chris was tall, fair-haired, nice-looking. Quite a nice body on him. More handsome, I would say. Yeah, we were all happy that that Karen had met Chris, and we thought Chris was a good person. He provided for the children, and he seemed to Love Karen.
He always went to work. He was never out of work. You know, in all fairness, in every respect he was a good dad with the kids, and he was good with his money with Karen. He made sure that they had food and everything like that.
He worked, he provided for them. So they went on holiday as a family.
Every year we used to go on holiday. From the age of 12, Mum and Dad started taking us abroad. So we started experiencing Spain.
She looked happy in the photos that they showed us. She seemed to have a good time. She liked to go out to bingo one night a week. She and Chris would look after the kids while she went. On the weekend, they went to the club and had a dance and met their friends down there.
But in the early months of their marriage, Karen's family begins to notice that Chris has some strange habits.
He wanted to know where she was, or if she came out, or he, be peering out the window, seeing with, them in a taxi cab, You just, you just watch it all the time.
He would often go through a handbag, a coat pockets, a purse even. I did say, well, why'd you let him? Do you go through his wallet? She said he just does it. He's always done it.
He would question her what she'd done, who'd she seen, where did she go? And that continued every day.
He treated her well if she was doing what she was supposed to be doing. Or she'd done something that he was jealous about, then he would change. He was very Jekyll and Hyde.
Chris, he was a very tall man. I mean, he just oozed authority. Even if he walked into a room, the presence and aura around him was just authority.
Karen believes that it's in her family's best interest if she doesn't upset her husband and goes along with his requests.
Provided she would have done what he wanted her to do, we were fine.
Forensic psychologist Brian Russell and psychotherapist Stacy Kaiser believe that the Pughs are setting themselves up for a volatile situation.
When you normalize profoundly inappropriate behavior, it's as if your barometer or your radar starts to get skewed. You become to where you're not calibrated anymore to what should strike you as disturbing.
It's a bad habit to get into to start to adapt to bad behavior. So for someone like Karen, who's starting to view Chris's controlling behavior as normal, this could enable his controlling behavior to become more frequent.
That's dangerous because something will have to get really, really bad before you'll recognize that you're in a dangerous situation.
2 years into the marriage, Karen's friend Bridget has an unsettling encounter with Chris at her home.
He would follow her about because he didn't trust her. I mean, I remember when the children were younger, he sent them over to my house to see if I knew where Karen was. So when the children knocked the door and asked me, I said, no, sorry, I haven't seen him today. And I looked over across the road and I saw his head appear from behind a white van. I thought it was a bit strange.
Not only is Chris's behavior strange, his family is not quite what it seems either. He waits until after they are married to divulge the truth. It turns out that Chris's sister is really his mother, and that his parents are really his grandparents.
And he said, she's my mother. And I said, who's your mother? And I said, you just saying that, Chris? He said, and I accidentally found out when I was about 16. You start finding out things, and it just don't make sense to you. And I was so shocked when Chris told me. I really was shocked.
I think, if you think back, it makes probably a lot of sense of why he's a bit weird in the head. If you get me, I don't know, might mess some people up.
Our first relationships are with our families. So for someone like Chris, who was deceived by his own family and told that someone was his mother who was not, this could create a foundation for mistrust. Makes sense to me that he begins to not trust his own wife, that he has control issues, that he has to watch her because his foundation has been so rattled that he doesn't know who he can count on.
But as the years go by, Chris's controlling behavior only gets worse.
I warned him a couple of times, do not hit her. I may be little, but I'm not scared.
By 1983, Karen Pugh is a devoted wife and mother of 2, running an immaculate household in Barry, Wales. And her husband, Chris, is working hard to provide for his growing family.
She ran a good house, good mother, and a good wife.
But 2 years into their marriage, Chris becomes paranoid. So much so that he accuses Karen of having an affair with a neighbor.
He thought that she had a man friend. The only friends that she had was the people that she went to bingo with, and they were women.
Despite the fact that his accusations are unfounded, Chris lashes out at her, and Karen ends up badly bruised. The tension also mounts between Chris and Karen's families.
I went round to Karen's, knocked on the door. Karen answered. She had bruising. She was crying. I said, where is he? And Karen said Chris had gone to his mother's. And I said, that's okay, I'll wait here till he comes back. Chris come back with 3 sisters. And they come to tell Karen off for the way that she was treating their brother. I told them to go away, otherwise they would be in serious trouble with me. I told Chris to leave. It was Karen's place, not his. I told him to go back to his mother and find somebody else. But Karen didn't want that. Karen wanted him back, so back he came.
Chris's family has a completely different take on what is really going on between Karen and Chris.
Chris's sisters went and accused Karen of seeing people when she went to bingo. They'd been told that she was seeing somebody else, and it wasn't the way to act when you were married and when you got children. And his sisters believed him. Basically, they believed him and didn't see 2 sides of it.
The sisters accuse Karen of provoking their brother with her flirtatious behavior.
They were older than me, and they spoiled Chris. He was a baby brother. Of course, one turned out to be his mother, so naturally she was going to stick up for her son. And the other 2 were aunties.
Karen's family takes her side.
They thought because I was little that I wouldn't do much, but I was feisty. I did plenty. I told them, if I catch Chris, just gotta catch Chris hitting Karen, I would break his arms. And I told him straight, I may be little, but I'm not scared.
Families often see what they want to see. And so they have this idealized version of Chris. They think he's so perfect and wonderful that they believe that the only reason he'd be behaving in this abusive way was because Karen was causing it.
I went up there and I said to him one day, I said, you're going to hit her once too often, Chris. And he said, what do you mean by that? I said, because I'll end up killing you. And he started to laugh, and I said, I don't joke about things. How many trees and bushes do you pass coming home? And which one am I going to jump out of? You tell me, and look for it.
Karen's family pleads with her to leave Chris.
I said, please leave. You can get a place, you can find a place to live. Just move away, you and the kids, and stay away from him.
I always said that she'd be better off leaving him, but she wasn't prepared to leave him because she didn't think it was fair on the children for them to be without their father.
And she said when the children are old enough, she said, I'm going to leave. So she had every intention of leaving, but wouldn't leave because they were a family unit.
In her mind, she couldn't keep the kids. they should be kept. In other words, clothes, food, wanting to go somewhere and all that jazz. She wouldn't have been able to do it out of her wages. How can I stay away from... I couldn't earn enough money to keep the kids. I gotta go back.
The troubled family continues to grow. In 1984, Karen gives birth to her daughter Louise, and in 1986, she has her fourth and final child, Samantha.
She realised how trapped she was, but she was going to leave him anyhow. She did tell us that when the youngest, which is Samantha, when she was of age, she was gone. She'd done her duty to all the kids. She'd brought them all up, and the other three were already settled anyhow.
But no matter the state of their marriage, Karen and Chris escape their problems by taking idyllic vacations together, often just the two of them. On these trips, Chris is like a different person.
She loved holidays, beaches, wherever. They all went as a family and they all went together. And he was as good as gold while they were on holiday and everything. He was absolutely marvellous.
By the early 90s, a decade into their marriage, these vacations don't seem like such a good idea to Karen's friends.
I said to her one time, aren't you frightened about going away with him on your own? What if he pushes you over a cliff after an argument? And she laughed at me and said, no, he always treats me like a princess when it's just the two of us.
But the happy vacation time doesn't last. Back home, Chris and Karen's marriage continues to spiral, and the tension between Karen's family and Chris's is getting worse. It reaches a boiling point when Lorraine learns that Karen has a broken arm.
And Kathleen received a phone call from Karen saying that Chris had hit her again. So Pauline and I ran to her car. We went over to Karen's. I picked up a piece of wood. I go in Karen's and I say to her, where is he? And I didn't find him, sorry. And I'm saying loud enough because I know he's not far away, he's just hiding. Tell him, when I see him, 2 broken legs. But that day I picked up this piece of wood and I would have used it.
Karen confesses to her father that her marriage is vastly different from what she had hoped for.
I went there one day and she was in bed. She said, she only wanted to be like you and Mum. She wanted to be a good housewife. She modelled herself on us. And that's all she wanted. She wanted a husband, she wanted the children, and she gave everything to them.
Pretty much every little girl grows up wanting to find her Prince Charming. So to begin to see that your relationship has taken a turn for the worse and that it's hopeless and that you really don't think you're ever gonna have that is devastating, it's traumatic.
At the end of her rope, Karen decides to go on vacation, and it will change her life.
And then she said to me one day, I met a fella out there. She said he's from Cardiff. She was full of life again.
The violence in Karen and Chris Pugh's marriage is escalating. Karen's family encourages her to take some time away from him.
It got worse and worse. It got worse and worse, and everybody could see it.
And eventually, it wore her down.
In February 2002, at the lowest point in her marriage, Karen decides to go to Torremolinos, Spain, for a week-long vacation. She's ready for a dramatic change in her life. When Karen gets back, friends and family notice a complete change in her.
She had lots of colour in her face and she was really happy. She was always smiling, always excited. She was just like a different person.
And there's a good reason for her newfound happiness.
In the beginning, Karen didn't tell us. We didn't have a clue. We just said to her, you had a good holiday, it was superb, she said. And that was the indication that she enjoyed what was happening there.
John is a 51-year-old landscape gardener from just outside Cardiff, Wales. After meeting in Spain, the two become romantically involved.
She didn't tell us that she'd met someone or anything for ages. And then she said to me one day, I met a fella out there. She said, he's from Cardiff. And I said, oh yeah.
You could see the difference in Karen. Karen became happier. Her whole face used to light up when she spoke about John.
He used to buy her flowers a lot. He always bought her flowers, and she used to appreciate that, because that's something that Chris never really did.
Karen continues her relationship in secret.
It's like she'd had a breath of fresh air. She was relaxed. She was laughing more. And things just more ease.
Her needs have not been met for so long, and now she finally finds somebody who is attentive and interested, and it feels good to her. And so rather than just leave her husband, she begins to see him on the side, almost as if he's filling the holes that Chris has left open.
I think that Karen was escaping temporarily, periodically, from the relationship with Chris that she knew was failing. Something like starting an extramarital affair instead of getting out of the marriage adds a whole extra layer of complexity to getting out of the marriage.
Even though they are both married, according to Karen, her holiday romance is about to get serious.
The thing is, he's married, but he doesn't get on with his wife. Oh, I said, don't say you're falling for that story. And she said, no, it's true. He doesn't get on with his wife. And so we're going to start meeting. And I said to her, well, you be careful because of Chris. I said, you know what he's like, Kat? I said, you just be careful with it.
I said, well, you have to ask yourself, did you still have any feelings for Chris? And she told me, no, I don't love him anymore. And I said, well, you're a decent person, Karen. You've got to do the decent thing and tell him.
But Karen is too scared to tell him. By spring, after carrying on the affair for a few months and buoyed by her new romance, Karen realizes it's time to make her move and get out of her relationship with Chris. Karen's youngest daughter, Samantha, is now 15. Deanne and Michael, in their early 20s, and Louise, 18, have all moved out of the house. Karen feels that it's no longer necessary to stay with Chris for her kids.
All of a sudden, Karen came to me and said, can I come down here to live? And I said, I suppose. And she said, I'm leaving Chris. And can I come down here? And I said, yes, you can come down here. What about the kids? No kids. There's only Sam left, and Chris can look after Sam. She'll be fine. I'm leaving.
Karen moves out, and surprisingly, Chris doesn't put up much of a fight.
He would knock the door with some chocolate for Karen, and Karen would say, I don't want to see him. And I'd say, Karen doesn't want to talk to you, just go away, Chris.
After years of accusing Karen of having affairs, Chris can't imagine that his wife might now actually be having one. He's convinced that the two of them are getting back together, since, according to him, they've been seeing each other. He even tells his youngest daughter, Samantha, that he is reconciling with her mother.
Samantha had come down to my house, and my boyfriend was there. Basically, she just turned around and said, oh, Mum and Dad are getting back together, and she was really buzzing. And my boyfriend turned around and said, no, they're not. She's met someone new.
Samantha is the last in the family to find out. She's shocked by the news. Hoping to help her father face the truth, she tells him of her mother's affair. When Chris hears about it, he behaves like a man obsessed.
He was just becoming a right stalker. Karen slept at my front room, and she had the bed in there. And he could only just see over the window because the window was high. So it was just a pair of eyes looking in. And she'd say to me, oh, Mum, Chris is looking in again. I said, pull the curtains so he can't see. So, which Karen would do.
Well, he kept coming down house and wanted to see Karen. We told him, no, it's finished. And used to sit on the wall and watch him waiting.
He wanted Karen back. And Karen wasn't going back. There was no way Karen was ever going back there. When he was off from work, he was there. Weekends, he was there nearly all day long. Up there, over there, down there. Whichever way. And he was there.
Chris has always been possessive of Karen from the very beginning. And now that she seems to be slipping away, that he's afraid maybe that he'll leave her, his controlling behavior escalates. He needs to know more, watch her more, possess her more.
When people start to get desperate, irrational courses of action start to seem reasonable to them.
Everyone is on edge.
Just lost his head, like. I caught him outside my nan's on the Wednesday. He was pacing back and forth past my nan's garden, like, and I said to him, what are you doing down here? And he showed me a gun. He said, I got a gun, I'm gonna shoot that John. I know he's in there with your mother. And I said, oh, come on now. I said, don't do that, you'll end up in prison. What about us kids? And he said, fuck you kids, I just want your mother back. So on the Thursday, I went to warn my mum that I'd caught him outside there with a handgun.
It was crazy because I said to her, look, if I go to the police, I said, I can have him for being a stalker. She said, you can't say he's stalking me. I said, well, what's he doing? He is stalking you as far as I'm concerned. And I said, but it's not only you, Kat, there's me. He won't touch you, Mum. She said, he'll never touch you. So she said, you're quite safe, it's only me.
Karen is so immune to his behavior now that she doesn't have any emotion about it. She's so cavalier because she's learned to be detached.
Often people in abusive relationships get desensitized, and their threshold for what seems violent to them rises to a point that would be hard for the rest of us to understand.
It's really dangerous because it's literally like a slowly bubbling pot that I fear will ultimately bubble over.
Despite Chris's stalking, every once in a while, Karen visits him at her old house and periodically sleeps over there. Everyone speculates about what is going on.
Maybe she thought in her own little mind that if she went back with him and spoke to him, that it'd smooth things over.
She must have thought, oh, just go and, go over, keep him happy, so he don't start.
Chris's family has a different take on the situation. They claim that she is dating Chris at the same time as John and not just trying to smooth things over with Chris. They are convinced that she is leading her husband on.
Made out that Karen was the one that was in the wrong. She was the one having the affair, and Chris was desperately trying to get the marriage back on track. He bought new clothes, he was making more of an effort with himself, and he wanted to take her out for dinner and things like that.
Karen led him to believe that everything was going to be okay with them, that they were going to be back together.
I actually have two theories for why I think Karen is still seeing Chris. Number one, I think she still has feelings for him. I also think it's possible that Karen's afraid of Chris, that she is hoping if she continues to see him, sleep with him occasionally, that she might be able to temper his emotions and keep him content.
I think that sometimes people in volatile relationship situations aren't 100% sure what they want to do. And so they tend to keep multiple doors open while they get sure.
Despite her husband's close watch, Karen's new relationship with John grows more serious.
I think she was in love with John. She'd called to the house and she was discussing John and what she was going to do. She wanted to move out of Barry.
Finally, she makes a move that pushes Chris to the brink.
He went, he said to me, I gotta go. He went. Didn't even say where he was going, he just said he was going.
On June 22, 2002, Karen visits her boyfriend John in Cardiff for the day. According to Karen, they've both decided to file for divorce so they can finally be together.
Karen left me at lunchtime and she said to me, I'll see you later, Mum, I won't be late. And off she went. And then in case 6:30, Karen hadn't come back. And I said to Peter, I said, Karen said she wouldn't be late. I just wondered where the heck Karen was, and I thought, oh, I know what's happened. She's met one of her girlfriends, and she's gone for a blinking drink, not phoning and letting me know.
That evening, Karen's parents get a series of phone calls from Chris. He's looking for Karen too.
About 20 to 7, the phone went, and it was Chris on the phone, and he said, is Karen there? I said, no. And he said, he said, you don't know where she is? I said, no, I don't. And that was it. Then again, about 7 o'clock, he done it again. Is Karen there? No. You still don't know where she is, Kath? No, Chris, I don't know where she is. At 10:30, he phoned again. Peter took the phone. He said, for God's sake, Chris, give it a break. She's not here. Now leave us alone. Don't phone anymore. And put the phone down. And that was the last we heard of Chris.
I don't think that Chris ever thought that Karen would leave him. She put up with so much of his inappropriate behavior. I really think that he thought he had her for life.
Chris viewed Karen like an object. Through Chris's eyes, it probably looked as it would look if someone drove off in your car, as if somebody were literally taking your prized possession and running off with it. That's a whole different kind of emotion.
When Karen still has not returned from Cardiff the next morning, her parents really begin to worry. The series of phone calls from Chris has added to their anxiety. They start calling around to see if anyone has heard from her. Across town, Karen's sister Pauline gets a phone call from her niece's mother-in-law, Mo, who has spent the evening drinking with Chris. And she's got a bizarre story to tell.
It was 8:30 in the morning, and it was Mo, which is my niece's partner's mother, sort of mother-in-law. And Mo said, is that Pauline, Karen's sister? And I said, yes. Mo said, I've got a bit of dilemma. I've had Chris here all night, and he's gone now, but he said he's killed Karen.
Pauline is blindsided by this shocking revelation.
Okay, I'll phone my mum and dad now and see where Karen is, and I'll go up to Karen's.
So Pauline went up in her car, and then she phoned me.
My dad said, I'm going to the tip and I'll meet you at Karen's. I said, yeah, fine. I went to Mo's house, got the keys, and I went to Karen's house, and I was trying to open the door. She had a very fiddly door, it was really... And luckily I couldn't get in, and the police came then.
It was hard, but Peter took that phone call. I didn't. Peter took it and he went. He said to me, I gotta go. And he went. Didn't even say where he was going. He just said he was going. He said, Pauline was on the phone, I'm going. And I said, okay.
Mo had phoned the police as well, so luckily they arrived 2 minutes after me. When the police turned up, they obviously went in the house, and I stood on the gate, and the policeman walked out. And I can't even remember now whether he said it was code red or code blue, but it's code blue, and I said, is she in there? And he said, yes. And with that, my dad turned up.
He said, Daddy, he's killed her. That's the first we knew. And couldn't believe it.
I don't even know what we did. We went to the police station, and I had to see my dad cry. I just thank God I hadn't got it in the house. I don't know what I would have done. It was bad enough.
Peter came in and he said, you're not going to believe it. He's done. I said, he's done what? He said, Chris has killed Karen. I said, the hell how'd you know?
I can't imagine anybody doing it. It was a shock. Now, yes, we could see how it was building up to that, but I mean, when it happened, we never expected that to happen.
Chris's alcohol-fueled confession to Mo turns out to be true. When Karen gets back from meeting her new boyfriend, she runs into Chris on the street. and Chris convinces her to come over to his house.
John texted her, missing you already, J. And he just put the initial J. Karen was up in the bathroom, and he picked it up and read it. And I think that was the start. I think that's what's done it, if you like.
He went into the bathroom and then tried to strangle her with a towel. And he then armed himself with a hammer, which was close by, and battered her about the head. I think he broke the hammer, and having done that, went and got another hammer from another part of the house.
After Chris brutally murders his wife Karen, he sends a text message to John saying, "Meeting Karen in Cardiff was the worst thing you ever did." Chris cleans up the crime scene after first going out to buy a bottle of whiskey, leaving the body in the house.
He'd gone to the shop and bought a bottle of whiskey because it was on camera. And then Chris went back to the house and cleaning up everything.
With the house clean, Chris roams the streets, claiming to be looking for Karen.
Killed her about, I think it was 5:30. And he was ringing my nan then to see if he'd seen her, when he was probably stood next to her.
Chris ends his search charade at his in-laws' house and spends the entire night drinking with her and talking about his marriage and his relationship to Karen. Towards early morning, he confesses to Mo that he's killed Karen. Karen's family cannot believe what's happened.
It's like as though you're outside your body watching. It doesn't seem like you. It's really strange. I can't describe how I felt. Obviously, I was devastated. I don't mean it like that. But what I was doing and saying and things like this, I can't. It's quite blurred, the day.
I just couldn't believe it. I lost her. And it still hurts.
I wouldn't believe it for about 2 weeks. Like, I kept looking for her. And then after the funeral, then I spent the night in the cemetery by the side of her. That's when I finally accepted it.
After confessing the murder to Mo, Chris disappears. There are various sightings of him around town.
He was down the bingo hall looking for her when he just killed her.
The police search the streets urgently, looking for the confessed killer. No one knows what else he's capable of.
It was awful. Worst day of my life. Worst day.
At 9:08 a.m. on June 23, 2002, Karen Pugh is found dead, killed by 16 blows to the head. After confessing to the crime, her husband Chris is now nowhere to be found. Karen's family fears the worst. They are also afraid of what they might do to him if he does resurface.
I wanted to kill him. Stone dead. That's what I said.
Over the next several hours, the rumors about Chris's whereabouts run rampant, and many believe he'll resort to suicide.
If I'd known he had drugs in his pocket and he was down the dock, I'd have pushed him in.
With every passing minute, the family becomes increasingly anxious. Chris is still nowhere to be found. But by 3:30 p.m., to everyone's surprise, Chris appears at the police station and unexpectedly turns himself in. He tells police that he believes he has committed a crime, but has no recollection of the event. He is detained while police sort out his bizarre story.
I just know that Chris gave himself up. Eventually. It was awful. Worst day of my life. worst day.
The next morning, the family is asked to identify Karen's body at the morgue.
Me and my brother, Michael, and my nan, we were all in the car to go and see my mum after she was murdered. We went to the hospital morgue. They covered up her head with a bandage. So I always remember she had a little tear in her eye.
By bizarre coincidence, Chris calls while they are there.
They'd just come out of seeing their mother dead. And I think it was Michael's phone that rang. And he spoke to him like as though they'd been shopping. And they were just on their way home from shopping.
Just 2 days after turning himself in, on June 25, 2003, Chris is charged with the murder of Karen Pugh and remanded into custody. Several months later, Deanne visits her father in prison.
I just wanted answers, like, I wanted to know why he did it. I wanted him to say sorry more than anything, I think. I didn't get any of that. He was just talking to me like it was something you do every day, or when I killed your mother. That's how he was talking to me, when I killed your mother, like it's just something you do every day.
On April 30th, 2003, just 11 months after Karen's death, Chris begins his trial for the murder of his wife. To Karen's family and the prosecution team, it seems like an open and shut case. They are wrong.
The charge was a simple charge of murder. It would appear on the charge sheet, given the date, on a certain date, Christopher Pugh murdered Karen Pugh, and that would be it. In English law, murder is murder. There are no degrees of murder.
When the trial started, or just, as it was starting, the prosecution, we were not led to believe that there would be any problems. The evidence was quite straightforward. Chris had tried to strangle Karen, couldn't for whatever reasons, and went and got 2 hammers to make sure that she never got up again. And for that split second, I feel that he's thought about what he's going to do, so it's premeditated.
Efforts to clean up the crime scene afterwards, efforts to elude the police, at least for a while, all indicate that there was a consciousness of guilt. And the fact that he switched instruments in the course of the crime indicate that he was thinking, he was making decisions even during the crime.
The prosecution argues that he was lucid during the attack.
The fact that he used 2 hammers is pretty conclusive usually in circumstances such as this, that you're not out of control. You're acting in a controlled and rational manner. To put down 1 hammer which was broken and then go and search for another and then come back and finish the act is pretty well deliberate. I think we thought we were home and dry on this case.
He found or got them 2 hammers and he killed her. He beat her 16 times on the head.
However, the defense creates a challenge for the prosecution by citing a little-known statute called the provocation law.
The important feature in this case was the law of provocation. And that provided that if by words or deeds immediately prior to the incident, someone was caused to lose his self-control and acted in a particular manner, then the proper verdict is one of not guilty of murder, but guilty of manslaughter.
In short, the defense is claiming that Karen's actions provoked Chris into killing her. This is a law more often used in domestic abuse cases where the victim kills the batterer.
The core of the philosophical debate about provocation is whether or not there can be circumstances under which an otherwise rational person is so upset that he or she can no longer be expected to respond rationally.
Most of us have heard the expression, "I saw red." And that leads us to believe that what the person is saying was, "I really lost it." But the people that lose it remember their actions. And so I do think it's possible that Chris lost it, that he got angry, that he saw red, but that doesn't mean that he would have forgotten what he did.
Chris's, I suppose, lawyers were looking for was to blame Karen, that Karen was the Scarlet Woman, and Karen had broken the family home up.
There was some evidence raised by the defence that Karen had still returned to the matrimonial home from time to time, but it's quite clear that she still had feelings for him despite his conduct towards her, so that when he was able to persuade her to go back, she was very susceptible to be persuaded. Of course, it did result in the fact that she was sleeping with both at the same time.
But the prosecution remains confident that John's testimony will clear up any confusion about the state of Chris and Karen's abusive marriage. They're in for a big surprise. John chooses to testify from behind a screen because he is afraid of Chris. And to the family's horror, he tells the jury a very different side to the story. He testifies that Karen was chasing him and that it was creating problems in his marriage.
John was the boyfriend. He clearly featured in the case and was an important feature of it. As he had given material evidence of fact, necessary evidence of fact that we needed, we had to call him as a witness. He was a reluctant witness. He didn't want to come at all because Karen had gone, and I think at that stage he was possibly back with his former wife, and so the last place he wanted to be was giving evidence in this case in court. His reluctance was also marked by the fact that he insisted on giving evidence from behind a screen.
John's testimony comes as a major blow.
John said that Karen hounded him, wouldn't leave him alone, and when he tried to break it off, she said she was going to tell his wife.
No one knows whose version is true.
I think John's testaments changed purely because he still had a life, and he wanted that life with his wife.
All in all, not a good witness. Not a good witness, and a bit of a gift for the defense.
The jury is swayed by the defense's arguments. On May 9, 2003, Christopher Pugh is acquitted of murder and convicted of manslaughter by means of provocation. He is sentenced to 6 years behind bars. But because of time already served, will only have to spend 3.
So a surprising verdict. I think everyone was surprised. And the very nature of the violence that was used in the course of the event, we thought took it far beyond what one would normally have thought would have been a reasonable case of provocation.
In his sentencing remarks, the judge deemed the attack with the hammer as excusable, considering the circumstances, and that his wife had driven him to lose control.
He apologized to Chris for the hard time he'd had. When summed up, he said, "You know, Mr. Pugh," he said, "I know you've had a hard year, a very traumatic year," he said.
Chris said that Karen provoked him, and the judge said that it was provocation and that it was excusable. The 16 blows to the head was excusable because he was provoked. How can you have an excuse for hitting somebody, going to get the hammers and hitting somebody 16 times on the head? The evidence was there. Why? Why wasn't it murder? It wasn't a nasty accident that went wrong. It was murder.
Oh my God, I was devastated. I really was devastated. I can't think of another word for it. I really did break my heart. That's the time I cried. When he turned around, the judge, he was nearly in tears, talking to Chris, apologising.
Kathleen said she did have a little bit of happiness before she died with John. And that's the only consolation that we got, that she did have a little bit of happiness before she died with John.
I think I was gutted more for my nan and gramp because, like I said, for 23 years they'd had to watch her being beaten and mentally abused and couldn't really do much in that respect. And then having to bury her and then having to live with the fact that there was no justice. And that ate away at my nan and gramp badly.
After spending 3 years behind bars For killing his wife with 2 hammers, Chris Pugh is released from jail in 2006.
It just pickles me like that he came out, picked his old job back up, and just carried on working. Like he was in there for like a parking ticket or something, or, you know, non-payment of something trivial.
In the end, Karen's desire to keep her family together eventually tears it apart. Chris's children do not know which side to take.
The children no longer have a lot to do with one another. They don't really speak.
It's broke us up. It's broke a very, very close family up. I'll tell you what, she'd be with you 10 minutes and you'd love her. Everybody loved Karen. When she got buried, there was 250 people at her funeral. 250 people at her funeral. No, she was loved.
Back in the Old West, Wyoming was a lawless land where life was cheap. Not anymore.
We have so many police officers that there's no room for crime.
But even today, wide open spaces can muffle the whispers of scandal.
The family was quietly, privately dysfunctional.
People talked. It was just like, do you believe it? Do you think he could do that? Do you think they could do that?
With young lovers in trouble and a marriage on the rocks.
It scared the crud out of me just getting close to that edge.
A tragedy becomes something much worse.
I was riding back with a murderer and didn't know it.
It was a 3-word email, dig 'em up.
An accident is one thing. A double homicide, that's a whole different animal.
Love may be blind and marriage bliss, but divorce is murder. Green River, Wyoming, a mining town that hasn't changed much since the old days, as if the jagged desert cliffs protect it from the troubles of the modern world.
Green River, it is small. We are very Western.
What a beautiful town. It is, and it really is. It's just a quiet, peaceful, healthy place to raise a family.
Crime, we have so many police officers that there's no room for crime.
But crime forces its way in. This story of lost innocence begins with high school sweethearts, Lyanna Davidson and Bob Duke. The young lovers meet in typing class.
Yeah, they're always together. If you remember one, you remember the other.
I taught Lyanna in primary. She was quiet. She was not a troublemaker. She just was a sweet young lady.
She's just soft-spoken, and you could just feel the kindness.
Lyanna, smart, pretty, and well-liked, is also a practicing Mormon.
Being Mormon, you live by higher standards. You walk a straighter line than most people. And she chose to walk it pretty straight. She didn't drink or smoke or, you know, things of the 90s. No, she was a good girl.
Bob isn't Mormon, but he also plays it pretty straight and dreams of leaving Green River behind as soon as he graduates.
He was above average. He seemed to grasp all the stuff that I was trying to teach.
He wasn't no tough guy or super stud athlete. He's just a calm kid that kind of just stayed back and camouflaged in.
Bob's parents are respected school teachers with a reputation for being strict.
Bob's parents were more the educated type.
In my opinion, two of the very nicest people you could ever meet. I always really, really liked and respected them.
Not all of Bob's friends are as squeaky clean as he is, especially his friend Roger.
Roger lived a little faster than Bob did. He had a taste for various intoxicants. He was not a perfect citizen.
They're good friends, but complete opposites. Bob and Roger bond over kung fu and hitman movies. But Bob stays respectable, while Roger cultivates a tough guy image.
He was like one of them guys that, I think in 8th grade, had a goatee, you know, smoked Levi jacket. He did get in fights and caused hell, raised hell, but...
Drug peddler, troublemaker. From what I heard and what I had seen, he was basically a thug. I don't know any other way to really put it.
Roger and Bob shoot pool and tear up the desert sage. Typical teenage boys.
He liked to run around in his Jeep. You know, that was his thing.
Off-roading, running around with the boys, things like that.
But those days are about to come to an end. News from Lyanna means Bob has to grow up, and fast. And Green River is about to learn that Lyanna's not always the good girl who can do no wrong.
Green River, it being a town of 11,000 people, us finding out about them having a baby was pretty quick.
Lyanna is pregnant at 16. Rose and Ralph, Lyanna's mom and dad, stand by their daughter.
They were very loving, kind parents and very accepting, non-judgmental.
I'm sure they felt just like the rest of us, you know, they started a little bit early, but, oh well, you know, life will go on.
I can see Rose being assured that Lyanna was mature enough to take care of a child.
Bob's parents find it more difficult to accept. They had big plans for their son.
I can see Bobby and Larry thinking, oh my word, his life's ruined. I think Dukes were probably more upset about it than Davidsons would have been.
Bob dreams of leaving Green River, of going to college, and exploring the world. Lyanna's dreams are more modest.
I think she epitomizes the all-American girl, hopes and dreams of raising a family here in Green River.
No matter. In small-town Wyoming, there's not much of a choice.
If you got someone pregnant, you married them. Or if they got you pregnant, you married them. It was just done.
I think that they knew what was right.
Bob and Lyanna marry on May 25th, 1991, the same day he graduates from high school.
You know, I'm sure there might have been some family pressure there.
Less than 3 months later, Lyanna, age 17, gives birth to baby Eric.
Oh, he was a doll. He was a beautiful little boy. He was. I will tell you this, I mean, Ralph and Rose adored him, but Dukes idolized him.
Psychotherapist Stacy Kaiser and forensic psychologist Brian Russell see challenges ahead for this young couple.
I think they literally felt it was their duty and obligation to do what they thought was the right thing, and the right thing in this case was to get married and have that child.
Relationships that start really young can be successful. It's just that anytime you begin an endeavor like that that's difficult even for people who are fully ready and fully planned it on a shaky footing, it just increases the likelihood that there are going to be problems.
I think the marriage and having a child so young was easier on Lyanna because she did always aspire to be a mom and a homemaker. But for Bob, he had big ideas. He wanted to leave the area where he was living. He wanted to go to college. And so it was a giant sacrifice for him to make.
Even though he's young, at first, Bob seems to take his new responsibilities seriously.
He laid carpet and tile and worked in a furniture store, and he started his own business laying carpet for a while. Reportedly did fairly well.
Lyanna graduates from high school a year later, then devotes herself to her new family.
She adored Eric. She doted on him. You know, very fearful for Eric, she was very protective of him. Some people think that women are, put down or not valued in the LDS religion, and that's not true. You're taught to be a mother, you're taught to be a homemaker, and she exemplified all that.
Lyanna fills the house with homemade crafts and dreams for the future.
She was very talented, and I think that she had goals of opening a craft store, and she loved doing those types of things.
Still, this young marriage is not always a bed of roses. Bob was independent, and this would sometimes clash with his family obligations.
It appears that his goals were still being a young man with no strings, doing what Bob wanted to do.
You know, she was home and family, and he was other things, adventurous things, exploratory things.
They were faced immediately with having to grow up right after high school, and that's hard.
Bob starts spending less time with his family.
I don't believe Eric was a priority for him. You know, it cut into the Bob time. And I think that he had a hard time with that.
To me, being a dad, it's not talk, it's not money, it's putting in the time, it's quality time. I heard he wasn't there. Just heard he was absent.
Do you know that I never saw Bob with Eric? Never.
Still, no marriage is perfect. And after 5 years, life has settled into a routine. Until suddenly, tragedy strikes. On August 10th, 1996, the Dukes drive out of town for a birthday picnic. Eric has just turned 5. They turn up a remote desert track to the very end of Lost Dog Trail.
First of all, you've got a pretty good cliff that's there. Second of all, it opens out into this open basin above the lake, and it seems like you're 300 feet in the air.
It's a breathtaking spot, looking out over the vista of Flaming Gorge Reservoir.
From the time we were young, really young kids, 7, 8, 9 years old, we were climbing up the mountain, chasing lizards. You know, we look at cliffs, they're all over the dang place.
But the precipice at the end of Lost Dog Trail is not just any cliff.
When I went out there, it scared the crud out of me just getting close to that edge.
The way Lost Dog is, no, you wouldn't have let your child out there.
Then, the unthinkable happens.
Very few people actually understood just how bad that cliff is.
You lose a child, you're never the same again.
Two teenagers face an unplanned pregnancy, followed by a shotgun wedding. Still, Bob and Lyanna Duke dream of a promising future together. But their dreams are dashed on the rocks at Lost Dog Trail.
We were called to the cliffs out on Lost Dog. We will need rope rescue. There's apparently, we didn't know at the time, 2 people went off the cliff. That's all we knew.
There's no sign of Lyanna or Eric. Bob Duke is in a state of shock.
He told the investigator that Eric was on the cliff chasing lizards.
They were up on the top of that cliff, looking out, and that he went back to the Jeep to get something to drink or a toy or something.
That's what we heard, that Bob was picking up the toys and taking them back.
His back was only turned for a moment.
She and Eric walked too close to the edge. The cliff gave way.
He heard Lyanna let out a scream, and that Eric had fallen, and she went after him.
The child fell, she grabbed for him. They fell.
Seemingly inconsolable, Bob tells first responders he'd never before driven down Lost Dog Trail and had no idea how dangerous it was.
They were riding around, looking for a place to have a picnic, and just ended up there.
Both Lyanna and Eric died immediately after a fall of 180 feet.
They were pretty well tore up. I don't like to talk about that. I tried to forget it. It wasn't pretty.
Lyanna Duke was just 22. Eric Duke, just 5 years old.
A lot of things go through your mind. It just seemed like such a waste, you know, a young life, well, 2 young lives right there.
Bob Clevenger rides back to town with Bob Duke.
I tried to make small talk with him. I did not want to say anything that would upset him. And I walked him into his house, into his parents' house. And all I said is, your son needs you now. And then I left.
Both parents, sets of parents, were just devastated. I mean, they were devastated at the loss of both of them. Bob literally showed no emotion. We left the mortuary and went home, and I told Rudy, he asked, do you think he even realizes that they're gone, what's happened? And he said no. He said he's not even in touch with reality.
The tragedy is ruled an accident by the Sweetwater County Sheriff's Department.
We've had a few kids fall off cliffs. Four-wheelers, motorcycles. The way it happened, that's what got us. Knowing that they went up there for Eric's birthday, that's what got us.
Lyanna and Eric are buried side by side in the Riverview Cemetery.
The next day, I took flowers to the house, and the house was just covered with flowers.
The whole town is full of sympathy for the Davidsons, for the Dukes, and for Bob, a widower at just 23 years old. And then Bob gets on with his life. Perhaps too quickly.
A month after the funeral, I was coming home from base, and I was driving past a gas station, and I noticed Bob Duke and his new girlfriend, and they were happy, and it just struck me as being odd.
It's difficult in the immediate aftermath of a tragedy to say how somebody should and should not react to it. There are people who shut down, there are people who get very expressive, but there are certain behaviors that people engage in that are clearly unusual. Moving very quickly on into what looks like a new happy phase of life is a red flag for me as a forensic psychologist.
I think it's a huge red flag that Bob is seen very quickly after their deaths with another young woman. It makes me wonder if he had a relationship before their deaths that was already started and he had picked it up after their deaths.
The rumors start to circulate. With a new girlfriend in the picture so quickly, Green River gossips wonder whether Bob and Lyanna's marriage was as solid as it appeared from the outside. They hear reports that suggest Bob was far from content.
He told others that don't get married, it'll ruin your life. He told a young woman that he would never make that mistake again, referring to having a child.
One of the Duke's neighbors reports hearing them argue behind closed doors.
She heard fights. She would hear him screaming obscenities at her and calling her vile names, and not just once. She heard it on a pretty regular basis.
There were stories that Bob cheated on Lyanna and that Lyanna knew about it. One woman found her in the most unlikely place, the bathroom of the Wild Horse Saloon.
She opened the door and went in. There was no one else in there except a young woman who was bent over the counter there crying.
Lyanna was there, searching for Bob.
And then she told her that a friend called and said he was there with another woman, and that's why she was there in the first place. She indicated that she was in a horrible marriage and that her husband wanted out, and he'd said he would kill her, and she and Deb said, well, we've all been there.
It wasn't the only time she'd seen Lyanna in distress.
And she remembered a very unpleasant incident at the grocery store where she saw Bob and Lyanna together, and he was yelling, and then he dumped over the grocery cart, and she started to cry, and she's picking up the groceries and putting them in the cart, and he's standing there yelling at her.
Before the marriage, Bob used to talk of college, of travel, no more.
He did feel trapped. He did feel like, you know, he didn't live his life, and he got married too early and had a kid too early, and all his money went to, you know, raising a family and not to Jeeps and toys and things like that.
He told several people various versions, but he didn't like being married. One statement I recall was he married the wrong sister because the sister was outgoing and social. Lyanna was a homebody.
Bob's friends had suggested divorce, but for Lyanna, it was not an option.
I don't think that divorce was socially acceptable in Mormon or LDS communities. People stayed together who never should stay together. They stay together for the kids.
Divorce is ugly, because with divorce comes, and you have a child, comes child support.
Lyanna wanted to save the marriage, have another baby.
She wanted children, he didn't. And I think that's a goal that there's really not a lot of compromise there.
They were young. I think that she wanted to do whatever she could to make it work because she wanted to provide that home for her child. That's what she wanted, more than anything.
A troubled marriage and suspicions of infidelity do not give the police reason to believe that Lyanna and Eric's deaths were anything but an accident. Until Bob's high school buddy Roger reappears, ready to reveal an extraordinary secret, a secret that will cast new light on the events at Lost Dog Trail.
I believe that a murder had been committed, not one but two.
A 5-year marriage ends with the sudden deaths of Lyanna and her 5-year-old son, Eric Duke. Friends and neighbors feel nothing but sympathy for grieving husband Bob Duke, despite his strange behavior after the tragedy. But one local cop has niggling doubts from the very start. Back in 1996, after Lyanna and Eric died, Mont Meekum drives out to the end of Lost Dog Trail.
So I didn't like a story. You don't take your small child and your wife and go have a picnic on a rock ledge on 3 sides. When I went to the cliff and looked over, in my opinion, I had no doubt. I believe that a murder had been committed, not one but two.
From the very beginning, Mont found major flaws in the police investigation. But the case belonged to the sheriff's office, not to him.
They didn't do search warrants, they just didn't do interviews, they didn't do follow-up, they didn't talk to friends.
And there was no forensic autopsy on the bodies.
The sheriff said, hey, it's an accident, let it go. They couldn't get through their heads, I believe, that a person could throw his wife and his child off a cliff.
Mont's words fall on deaf ears.
Basically because it was in the county, and you know, I definitely let him know that my opinion was. And the chief basically come down and said, okay, you know, you've spoke your piece, move on. They'll handle it.
Not everyone is suspicious. Most Green River residents are convinced by Bob's account of the tragedy.
He told me the whole story, and I mean, it tore me up. He said he ran over to the edge of the cliff and could see him down there, and he could hear his son gurgling blood and trying to breathe. He said he could hear that, but he said that there was no way that he could get down there.
But for Mont, the story doesn't ring true. When the rescuers arrived, they had no trouble finding their way down the hillside to the bottom of the cliff. And how could Bob, standing on a windy cliff top, hear his son breathing 180 feet below? The questions remain unanswered. 2 years after the death of his wife and son, Bob moves to Houston to live with his older brother, Mike. Then, out of the blue, Mont receives a startling telephone call. A call from none other than Bob's old friend, the local hellraiser, Roger.
I knew Roger and Bob both from when my boy was in high school with them. They played and joked and, you know, sneak a beer out of my fridge once in a while.
Roger tells Mont he's been keeping a secret. Back in 1996, just weeks before Lyanna and Eric died, Roger says that Bob came up with a deadly proposition.
Bob came to Roger and voiced that he was unhappy in his marriage and that he wanted them gone. Roger and Bob had watched some movies. They had, Hitman, I believe, was one of the movies that they'd watched. And they'd discussed and kind of joked around about knocking people off.
Specifically, knocking off Lyanna and Eric.
The plan evolved into Bob would pay Roger a sum of money in the neighborhood of $20,000. Roger would shoot Lyanna and Eric during a barbecue that the family would be having.
They were going to shoot him over the fence and make it, you know, a burglary gone bad type situation.
To make it look good, make sure that he shot Bob in the leg or somewhere that it wouldn't be fatal, but that it would make it look real.
Roger says he thought the whole thing was a joke, but when Lyanna and Eric fell to their deaths, he believed it was no accident.
He was very concerned, and that was his first thought, was that Bob had killed them.
At the time of the deaths, Bob pulled Roger aside and insisted he had nothing to do with the tragedy at Lost Dog Trail. Roger believed him.
He just didn't think he had done it. He couldn't believe that somebody could do it.
Nobody thinks that their friend would ever kill their wife or child. And so it makes sense to me that Roger just thought that Bob was joking when he made a comment like that.
Well, hindsight is 20/20. It may have been that Roger thought that he was just frustrated with life at home and he was venting and he was sort of fantasizing, but with benign intent. Friends and family members want to find a way to believe the people that they love and care about so that they can maintain the relationship. It's a profound loss if they face the fact that the person is a murderer.
Over 2 years later, Roger has a change of heart about his old friend Bob. He tells Mont that out of the blue, Bob Duke had called him. Bob had apparently spent the $60,000 in life insurance collected after Lyanna and Eric's deaths, and now, with his brother Mike, he'd hatched a sinister plan to make more.
He contacted Roger and asked him to murder his parents for hire.
When he finally gave up the whole story, I was, holy smokes. Bob had called him and said that if he would help him kill his mom and dad, that he could have anything in the house that he wanted and just keep it for himself. He also said he could have some of the insurance money also to help him out with some of his debts.
Now that Roger has been asked to help kill Bob Duke's parents, he feels sick with guilt.
I think the guilt or his feelings for what had happened to Lyanna and Eric were pretty strong, and that's what actually brought him to the police.
And then when I asked him why he did it, and that's when, the past started coming up. Well, he wanted me to do the wife and kids. Okay, when he said that, that's when he had me hook, line, and sinker, and I was in this thing, okay? Because that confirmed what I'd always suspected.
Roger's startling confession and a potential criminal conspiracy changes the game completely.
An accident is one thing. A double homicide, that's a whole different animal.
Bob's high school buddy Roger tells Green River Police that not only does he believe Bob killed his wife and son, but he's now actively plotting to kill his own parents. Bob makes the critical mistake of calling Roger long distance, which means the case gets turned over to the FBI.
The federal authorities were brought in because of the interstate nature of the conspiracy solicitation. The solicitation was being made from Texas to commit a murder in Wyoming, and so that created federal jurisdiction.
I felt I had a case. There was no doubt in my mind. So then I called the FBI and said, okay, this is what I have.
I remember just having some question about, really, both two brothers both wanting to kill their parents.
But they need more than Roger's word. They need to hear it from Bob directly.
What happened was that Lieutenant Meekum and the FBI arranged to have several phone calls placed that were recorded.
Naturally, Roger would be nervous. I mean, the stakes are pretty high in this type of investigation and these type of phone calls. And so Roger just had to try to get as much information as he could regarding the plot.
I mean, he was scared, big time.
No one is sure whether Roger can pull this off.
Reference conspiracy to commit murder.
Hello? Yeah. Hey, it's me.
Roger gets straight down to business.
Hey, Remember when we talked before about the $20,000 for killing your parents? Yeah. Hey, I'm thinking I might want that.
Do it.
Did you have any ideas about maybe how I could do it, or?
You know, Mike and I were talking.
There were some pretty explicit discussions made about the manner in which it would be done. Bob suggested a .22 would be a weapon of choice because it would be quiet and no one would hear it.
If you would quiet enough.
Right.
I don't think it's anything more than a door slamming.
Okay.
And everybody's closed up this time of year. Nobody has open windows or anything like that.
Right.
When Duke's parents came home for the evening, Roger was to shoot them.
So it's just walk in and do it and walk out just like it was, like I lived there basically then.
Yeah, the best thing to do would be be there when no one's there.
Right.
And then when they come in.
Just wait till they walk in and then catch them off guard. Okay.
Got to be together.
Okay.
Because my dad does have a gun in the house.
Right.
As well as the $20,000 payoff, Roger would get free rein to ransack the house.
You said that before I could have anything in the house? Like maybe your computer? Cool. What was it that you wanted?
He had there's a watch.
A watch? Oh.
But the one thing that Bob was adamant that he not take was his dad's watch, because Bob wanted it.
I've had it with this whole thing. I'm tired of hearing about it.
Right.
So, if you did it,
right,
we could probably up that just a little bit.
Just to make it more worth my while?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you did it, we could probably up it another 5.
Okay.
But the key is ASAP.
It was pretty chilling.
Cool, collected, thought out. And that just makes it 100% real.
The tone of them would make you believe that it was not a joke.
The FBI now has enough to arrest Bob for plotting to kill his parents. But they want more. They want Bob to implicate himself in the killing of his wife and child.
Roger was starting to panic, you know. I mean, the FBI pushed him a lot harder. They didn't coddle him like I would.
Knowing that we had an arrest warrant, we were going to push pretty hard, and Roger was asked to push and to bring up Lyanna and Eric, and he did.
Hey, is there any way we can make it look like an accident, like you did with your wife and kid?
Dude, I did not do that.
You didn't?
No, I didn't do that.
I thought you said you did family before.
What?
When we talked the first time, you said you did. Oh, I thought you said you did that.
No.
Huh.
No.
Okay.
Not with that, no.
Huh.
No, that's how come I didn't. We talked about it, and I didn't want nothing to do with it.
Despite this denial, there is at least clear evidence of a conspiracy to kill Bob's parents. And all the while, FBI agents have been lying in wait right outside. Bob Duke is arrested after an FBI sting operation records him conspiring to kill his own parents. Bob and his brother Mike are both charged with conspiracy. Investigators suspect he's also responsible for the deaths of his wife and child. But during a taped call to Roger, Bob categorically denies it.
Is there any way we can make it look like an accident, like you did with your wife and kid?
Dude, I did not do that.
You didn't?
No, I didn't do that.
When news gets out, the school teachers' sons and their murderous plot are the talk of Green River.
It shocked everybody. I don't think there's any other way to put it. One of our kids from our community.
I mean, what a sock in the face. Who would ever thunk that any of that would have happened?
People talked. It was just like, do you believe it? Do you think he could do that? Do you think they could do that?
Special Agent Todd Scott breaks the news to Mike and Bob's parents.
Probably one of the hardest things I've done as an FBI agent. I had the tapes with me. I offered to play them. Their response was, "Our sons, we're going to stand by them. We don't believe they would do that. We don't want to hear the tapes." And I didn't push.
Can you even imagine hearing your children plotting to kill you for your insurance?
Well, it's extremely unusual for anybody to want to kill a family member, and for somebody to want to kill family members strictly to unburden themselves of the responsibilities of being a husband and father, and then strictly to get money so that they can continue living the lifestyle they want to live, shows a stunning lack of the normal human connectedness and empathy that most of us have for those closest to us in life, our families.
The fact that he could literally go to his parents for financial assistance and say, "Can I borrow some money to help get back on my feet?" But instead of doing that, he'd opt to kill them is appalling. The parents had reported to police that Bob and his brother had a great relationship with them, but the fact that they are conspiring to kill them leads me to believe that there are some secrets that we don't know about.
People seem to think that it was a close-knit family with strict parents and loyal, loving children, and clearly, to some significant degree, that was an illusion.
Faced with recorded proof of the plot, Bob Duke pleads guilty to conspiracy to murder. He's sentenced to 10 years in a federal penitentiary.
Bob received the maximum sentence for the crime that he pled guilty to, which was conspiracy to use an interstate device for murder for hire.
Bob's brother, Mike Duke, gets 21 months for failing to report the plot.
In the calls, it was clear that Bob was in control.
If Bob Duke is capable of plotting to kill his own parents, is he capable of pushing his own wife and son off a cliff?
After hearing from his own mouth what he and Mike were going to do to their parents, there was no doubt in my mind that he killed his wife and his child, that he could do it.
Local police and FBI alike are still bothered by the deaths at Lost Dog Trail.
And I was sitting at my desk and I just couldn't get them out of my mind. And I just picked up the phone and called my friend, Mary Ernst, the death investigator. And I told Mary what had happened. I just said, "Let me run something by you." She didn't miss a beat. She said, "Todd, you've got a homicide." She said, "One person goes off the cliff, we're scratching our heads and looking hard. Two go off of a cliff at the same time, especially a mother and a child, no way."
Todd sends the FBI file to the county prosecutors, who are now convinced Bob is responsible, based on Roger's account of the plot to kill Lyanna and Eric. But Roger's word is all they have.
It was just an absolute lack of physical evidence. You have a homicide, you have weapons, blood splatter, all sorts of things that just weren't there.
The most convincing thing in this case is the cliff itself. We decided that this was not an accident, that this was a multiple homicide, and we filed the charges because of that.
Taking a leap of faith, prosecutors charge Bob Duke with the murder of his wife and child. It won't be easy to prove their case.
People's memories just don't stick with them, and so it's hard to take an old case and get facts, just the facts.
But photographs are more reliable. And that's how prosecutors find new hope for this investigation.
There was one certain photograph that we all looked at, and it looked very clearly as though there was a mark across Lyanna's neck, which might have been caused by a rope or a piece of fabric tied around her neck.
There was a good chance, based upon the bruise that we had seen, that we would find evidence of strangulation. There was some suspicion at the time that maybe there was a strangulation used to disable Lyanna, because certainly it would be risky to struggle with someone, on the precipice there.
To prove Bob had strangled his wife, they need forensic evidence. Harold sends the photos to a pathologist.
He emailed me back, and it was a 3-word email, dig 'em up.
So, in July 2000, 4 years after their deaths, they order the exhumation of Eric and Lyanna's bodies.
There's a bone in your throat that's called the hyoid bone. If that bone is broken, she was strangled. That's really the only explanation.
The autopsy results come back 4 days later. For Harold and his colleagues, the results are a blow.
And the hyoid bone was intact, and so the evidence that the real smoking gun that we'd hoped to find wasn't there.
It was pretty disappointing. A forensic autopsy indicating a strangulation would have made the case a lot easier.
Prosecutors move ahead regardless. Bob Duke will be tried for first-degree murder. And with no physical evidence, it could go either way. It's the word of Roger, a small-town hood, against his buddy, Bob Duke.
Bob's past, as opposed to Roger's past, were kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum. And so, who are they going to believe? Bob or Roger?
You never second-guess a jury. If we convince 12 of them that he did it, we win. If we convince 11 of them that he did it, we lose. Gotta convince all 12, beyond a reasonable doubt.
Bob Duke tries to convince the court that the phone calls with Roger should not be taken seriously.
His testimony during the trial, and he did testify on his own behalf, was always that those conversations were a prank, they were a joke, it was meant to be funny. That was the only explanation I ever remember him giving.
The way that I tried to deal with that is I would quote him or read him a specific passage from the transcript of the conversation. For instance, a 22 would work. It doesn't make very much noise and the neighbors wouldn't hear. And I would ask him, is this part of the joke? You could take them by surprise. When they get home, they're going on a trip to Salt Lake for shopping. You can take them by surprise, and you're free to ransack the property and take property. Is this part of the joke? And so after confronting him with the litany of these quotations, at one point I looked at Bob and I asked him, Bob, stop me when I get to the funny part. And he just kind of had no reaction to that. There's very little he could say other than, I didn't mean it, it wasn't serious, and that's what he tried to do, but it was a very hard sell. In fact, I think an impossible sell.
In the middle of the trial, a surprise witness turns up, giving a much-needed boost to the prosecution's case.
We were having a sandwich for lunch, kind of rushed. I had a message that there was someone there to see me. I basically told, my staff that I was too busy, I couldn't talk to anybody. And the woman was insistent that she needed to talk to me. She says, I've got some information about this case. Certainly had no idea it would be something as useful as this turned out to be.
She tells him that she met Bob Duke at a mini-mart in 1994 when she was 13 years old.
She and her sister had been basically out on the streets of the little town of Green River. Bob and Roger had essentially picked them up. They were both underage. They wanted to obtain and drink alcohol. Bob and Roger apparently were willing to provide the alcohol in exchange for female company, and they began kind of a dating relationship, as she describes it.
She and Bob spent a month making out and driving around in the desert. Bob confides in her. Things are not going well with his wife, Lyanna.
He told her he was married in name only, and that he did not want to go through a divorce, but he wanted out of the marriage.
He told her that he was searching for a way that he could get out of his marriage which would not involve paying child support.
Making out with a minor may be morally dubious, but it's a long way from murder. But then, the witness puts a giant dent in Bob's story. She reveals that Bob brought her out to the end of Lost Dog Trail more than once.
She had been to the crime scene with Bob Duke in 1994. And so he lied and told people that he'd never been there before. That was his first time, and she proved that to be untrue.
She was a concrete witness to testify that Bob Duke's story was false in at least one regard.
She tells her story on the stand, crucially catching Bob in a lie.
One of two things happened out there. Either it was an accident, as Bob Duke had always claimed, or it was murder, as we were claiming. There was nothing in between. And if it were an accident, there's certainly no reason for Bob to lie about the circumstances of the accident.
Nobody knows for sure whether Bob Duke pushed them off the cliff, whether he chased them off the cliff, whether he rendered them unconscious and threw their bodies off the cliff. Nobody knows exactly what happened other than Bob Duke. But we know that Eric and Lyanna went out to that cliff and that Bob Duke caused them to go off the cliff, and that's what caused them to die.
The jury takes just a few hours to reach a verdict. Bob Duke is found guilty of first-degree murder. In September 2002, he's sentenced to 6 life terms for murder and conspiracy.
Bob very nearly got away with 2 murders and may well have done so had he not tried to do it again.
Bob's parents never accept that their son was a killer or that they were in danger of being his next potential victims.
They defended both Bob and Mike the whole time. They never, ever wavered. One has to respect their position, because I would imagine that that's probably one of the hardest things for any parent to get their head around, that their child, or their children in this case, would want them dead.
Roger can perhaps claim credit for saving their lives.
I think Roger did the right thing. I mean, I think he's, in this instance, Roger's a stand-up guy, and he did something that was very hard for him.
The thing about it, Roger is straightened out. So, I mean, it helped him in a lot of ways.
Bob Duke has exhausted all of his appeals and is serving one of his 6 life sentences. His crimes leave a shadow hanging over the town of Green River.
It's heartbreaking, unnecessary, stupid.
That's why I felt down at this scene with the bodies, a waste, you know. It was just a waste.
I'm just glad that justice was served. Lives will never be the same. A lot of lives.
Angelo Headington and Elizabeth Radavsky, 2 country kids in love.
He seemed more fawning over her than anything.
Their whirlwind romance is followed by a shotgun wedding.
She seemed very happy, so that's great.
But their union is built on layers of lies and escalating violence.
The story was, I mean, it was extraordinary on so many levels, right? I'm thinking, this is a movie.
I was never really exposed to how evil people could actually be.
Love may be blind and marriage bliss, but divorce is murder. Glencoe, Ontario. This is horse country. Elizabeth Radavsky has always lived here and has always loved the country lifestyle.
I'm a country bum, grew up on a farm. I loved going out and just taking care of the animals, and I helped doing hay. I had a little 410 shotgun that was given to me by my dad.
She liked to raise rabbits and just a little bit of everything. One time she had a pet pig, and she babied that little piggy, and it got big.
More than anything else, Elizabeth loves to ride horses.
I love the horses. They just seem to understand me.
Glencoe is paradise for horse lovers, and as just about everyone will tell you, a tight-knit community. Kelly Dupont is a local horse boarder.
Most people are related to each other. I did find that. And a lot of good people, though.
In 2002, Elizabeth is 26. She works part-time selling dog licensing tags outside of Glencoe, a small Canadian farming village just north of Lake Erie.
You just needed to go from farm to farm throughout the whole township, basically just have people buy dog licenses.
The job is a good fit for easygoing Elizabeth.
Oh, she trusted everybody.
I don't pass judgment on people.
Oh, everybody knows everybody for sure. Not too much gets away without everybody knowing what the next door neighbor's doing.
Elizabeth lives with her boyfriend, Andy. They've been together 6 years, but unlike Elizabeth, Andy's not into horses.
I would always ride by myself. I know it was very dangerous to ride by myself, but if you have nobody to go with you, you just go do it.
Elizabeth is about to meet a stranger who shares her passion.
Oh, there was rumors regarding a lone rider that was out riding. We didn't know who it was.
Yeah, basically he came into town and rode into town and nobody knew him. Like, who's that guy? So
That guy turns out to be Angelo Headington. Elizabeth meets him when she pulls into a farm just outside town. Angelo has a job as a farmhand at Rhine Minima's farm.
I think he was working for Minima, and then he got injured.
Angelo doesn't have any cash to pay for his dog's license. He explains he fell off a fence and won't be able to work again until his leg recovers. Elizabeth agrees to collect the money from him later. Their conversation quickly turns from dogs to horses.
He says, oh yeah, he has a horse, and oh, where's your horse? And oh, he's in the barn. That was my first visit.
Relationship expert Stacy Kaiser and forensic psychologist Brian Russell see loneliness as a key part of this instant attraction.
There's always something attractive about the mysterious stranger riding into town, and I think that's part of what happened with Elizabeth and Angelo.
The connection on the horses, I think, is more than superficial.
The fact that Angelo is injured makes him appear vulnerable. And it really plays to something in a young woman because she thinks maybe she can help him.
A lot of women have a nurturing, motherly kind of instinct. And when somebody seems needy, injured, whether it's emotionally and or physically, it can sort of trigger that.
I think the horse was probably the biggest thing, that she found someone, a man that likes horses and had a horse.
Elizabeth's connection with Angelo grows stronger when she meets his horse, Excel.
In meeting Excel for the first time, he was a very gentle horse. He had a very soft eye. In being an animal lover, you can always judge an owner by the way the animal acts. I took from that he showed that he cared so much about his animals that he would care about people just as much.
Angelo tells Elizabeth how, as a teenager, he gave volunteer riding lessons to people with disabilities. She's thoroughly charmed.
Talked a bit about my horse. He was a flea-bitten Appaloosa.
They swap stories about learning to ride and the times they've been bucked.
Every time I talked about my horse and I had a story about something that had happened to my horse, he would always give me a story, something relating. We had a lot of common issues, common adventures.
Soon, they're calling each other Ange and Liz, and the conversation turns personal.
He had said that he was married before, and he was just trying to move on, and I had told him that I had a boyfriend at the time, and Andy wasn't a horse lover.
Elizabeth confesses to Angelo her relationship with Andy has reached a dead end.
I think it's easy sometimes for people in long-term relationships who get unhappy or get bored for some reason to run into somebody else and feel a much stronger connection than they really should feel because the other person reflects precisely the thing that they're unhappy about in their current relationship.
There is this really strong connection in and around horses, and that is something that is missing in her relationship with her current boyfriend.
Over the next 3 months, Elizabeth and Angelo spend more and more time together.
I showed him a couple of my spots just to go down and sit and look at the water, and well, that's the types of things I like to do.
They went riding and did things, and she seemed very happy, so that's great.
Angelo joins Elizabeth when she's out dog tagging.
I had asked Andy many times to just come out with me, just dog tagging, and he would never do that for me. So it was really nice that Ange wanted to spend the time with me, and to me that meant a lot.
The closer Elizabeth grows to Angelo, the further she drifts from Andy.
I just needed a way to get out.
In April, Elizabeth moves out of Andy's and into Angelo's.
He had this great big house, and it was just him there that I was more than welcome to move in, and I was hoping this would be a good fresh start.
Elizabeth even moves her horse, Owen, into the stable next to Angelo's horse.
I jumped in.
He seemed really nice and sweet. You know, he seemed more fawning over her than anything.
Tom Rudavsky is accepting.
She really didn't say anything to me. Just one day she's living with her other boyfriend, and then she's moved out and moved in with Angelo. I liked her other boyfriend, but it's not what I like. It's, if she's happy, that's the way it is.
It's really concerning to me how quickly Elizabeth has fallen for Angelo, left her boyfriend, and subsequently moved in with Angelo. It's almost as if she has put him up on a pedestal that he will inevitably fall from.
When one person sort of mirrors the other and has a reflective response for the things that the first person says, it can indicate the presence of a connection. When the relationship is healthy, that's what it does indicate. It can also indicate manipulation if some of the reflected responses aren't genuine.
Oftentimes, a great way to lure a person in is to pretend that you have the same interests.
When Elizabeth returns to her seasonal job as a cashier at a slaughterhouse, her boss, Alma, finds her happier than ever. And it doesn't take long before she meets Elizabeth's new beau.
One day he would come in and say, well, I bought her earrings, and Elizabeth would be wearing her earrings. And the next day would come in, you know, like I bought her a ring, and Elizabeth would have a ring on her finger.
But not everyone is as keen on Angelo. Nelson Billier buys and sells horses and has had dealings with Angelo on his travels.
Well, he'd stand there with his hands in his pocket like this and stand just like he was a macho guy. Very deep voice, full of BS.
Nelson doesn't think much of the new couple either.
She maybe had to be an idiot to be living with somebody like this. I don't spare the words, and that was just what went through my mind, thinking, what in hell is going on here?
But for the most part, friends and family wish them all the best.
I tease her about because she's a cute girl and she could do better, but then again, love is blind.
But happiness is not in the cards for Angelo and Elizabeth.
When they were first together, he was so nice to her. And then all of a sudden it was just like so nasty.
Elizabeth Rudavsky leaves Andy, her boyfriend of 6 years, and moves in with Angelo, a mysterious farmhand who recently moved to the small village of Glencoe, Ontario. By April 2002, Angelo and Elizabeth are spending almost all their time together. But cracks in their relationship are starting to show. Angelo is more and more possessive.
If she was anywhere near me, he would be within 5-10 feet, always within listening distance.
Angelo accompanies Elizabeth to work every day and stays for her entire shift.
The only thing I knew, all of a sudden, he was in the picture. He would wait till lunch in my coffee room and sit there and never leave.
At first, Alma chalks it up to the folly of youth.
One time they came with the same kind of shirt. So I thought, well, that is kind of cute. They might really like each other, you know?
But then she notices Elizabeth is losing weight. And when she compliments her about it, Angelo is the one who replies, saying he wants his girlfriend nice and thin. Reporter Jennifer O'Brien says that in spite of his baby face, Angelo's known as a tough guy.
He was real gruff, kind of spoke from the stomach, would, do things like kind of, macho things, like spit while he was speaking to someone, and talk kind of crude, and he had his hands in his pockets all the time, and he was playing with himself.
Angelo's behavior seems to be a little bit dichotomous because on the one side, Angelo seems to be really trying to project a lot of what we might call kind of rough masculinity. On the other side, Angelo seems to be trying to project a lot of sensitivity. And when people's behavior is dichotomous like that, it suggests to me as a psychologist that perhaps there's some chameleon-like phenomenon in play.
There are really two sides to Angelo. And it's really common for women to be attracted to that. They want the bad boy on the outside who appears soft on the inside.
When Elizabeth's dad, Tom Rudavsky, meets Angelo in person for the first time, he notices a change in his daughter's behavior.
He sat on the couch, and he made Elizabeth sit there, straight up, knees together, and hands on her legs. And he said, "You sit straight." And right from that day on, I knew there was going to be a problem.
I just sat there with my hands in my lap and looked pretty. He had come up with different ways to control me. I needed to act like a lady. I needed to dress like a lady. Okay, I was willing to do that for someone that showed me that they appreciated it.
The girl who used to be more of a tomboy is now dressing in floral dresses. And I think that this is legitimately concerning. Something has changed in her. Somehow she's being influenced.
Well, I think To the extent that Elizabeth is the one who seems to be making the changes and the sacrifices, it suggests that she is in the one-down position. She's the one who has less power in the relationship. She's the one who's acquiescing to.
Over time, people start to notice strange injuries on Elizabeth, and when questioned, there's always a plausible explanation.
Liz came to the house one day and she had this big black eye, and I was questioning her about it, and she said, "Oh, it's the horse."
I think the last time they showed up, I believe Elizabeth had a black eye. I know my wife asked her what had happened, and Elizabeth had told her that she ran into a trailer door.
At work, Elizabeth's boss, Alma, finds Angelo's presence less charming and more menacing.
I look at her hands and she have a, all over her hands, blisters. To me, it looks like a burns. I said, "What happened over there?" And Angela jumped in right away. Oh, she fell off the horse, and she landed in a poison ivy with both hands.
After a few months, Angelo's presence in the lunchroom has become such a nuisance that Alma's son asks him to leave.
He said, "Angelo, I have you enough. Go out. Go come back at 5 o'clock and pick her up."
Angelo doesn't leave. He simply plants himself in front of the shop.
But he never listened. Then he was sitting on a parking lot.
When asked to leave the premises, he crosses the highway and watches Elizabeth work from across the road.
Facing, that he can see everything through the window what is happening, and sit there until Elizabeth was done.
The fact that Angelo is continuously showing up and spending long periods of time at Elizabeth's work does not necessarily portend some kind of disaster, but I do think it portends dysfunction in the relationship because it either reflects an unhealthy degree of dependency on Angelo's part, or it portends an effort to isolate Elizabeth even in her own workplace. In other words, to prevent her from having the opportunity to interact with others outside of Angelo's watchful eye.
It's a predatory behavior. It's somebody who is lurking in the shadows waiting for who knows what. It looks like he is not giving her space to have a life. And it also makes me think that he has nothing to do. Doesn't he have anywhere else that he needs to go?
There are different accounts of what happens next. Alma says Elizabeth up and quit.
She just said, "Alma, I better quit." That's it. And she did not give me the reason why.
Kelly Dupont says Elizabeth is fired.
You can't have an employee where someone's sitting outside and waiting. It's really quite creepy to them.
Everyone agrees that Angelo's presence is to blame. Around the same time, Elizabeth also loses her dog-tagging job.
She lost 2 jobs because her partner was outside, stalking her basically.
Then, in June, the couple is kicked off the farm for not paying rent. Elizabeth's brother Tommy tells their father that Elizabeth shows signs of domestic abuse.
He was telling me that he's seen Elizabeth with bruise on her face.
Tommy also finds a leather riding crop hidden inside a cushioned chair, the kind used to discipline horses. Angelo tells Tommy he's kinky, suggesting a different, more sinister use of the whip.
I never seen Elizabeth with any injuries at that time, and it's just from what my sons told me.
Out of the blue, Elizabeth asks her brother to take her guns away, but doesn't say exactly why.
I think I just told him that the guns need to go. That it's not a lady thing to do, that they just need to go.
In town and at the barn, tongues start to wag. Everything about this relationship starts to feel wrong. Nelson, who's known Angelo for a long time, expresses his concerns to Kelly.
You know what, really be careful around that one, because, he's sort of a scammer and a con man, and, and that she was sort of in danger, really.
In a way, we felt sorry for her. But it's not our duty to walk up to somebody and say, hey.
Concern grows when Elizabeth holds a yard sale in a pasture on No. 2 Highway.
I drove by and there's a big yard sale. So I stopped and there's all this great stuff like long rider coats and saddles and blankets and bridles. I mean, nice stuff. So I stopped and bought a few things, but I said to Liz, I said, why are you selling all your stuff?
Elizabeth says she needs the money. Kelly wonders why Angelo isn't selling his stuff too. Among the items for sale, Elizabeth's first saddle.
I remember it had my initials on it. I oiled it all the time, and it was really hard to sell that saddle.
And her horse, Owen, which Nelson gladly trades for a much cheaper horse.
He was a very nice horse. I cannot tell you where I sold him, but it was a very good horse deal for me. And you think, why is somebody doing this?
So here we have Elizabeth, who is having this yard sale and selling off possessions that are near and dear to her, and Angelo is not. What this says to me is not only has she now been isolated from work and family and friends, but she's starting to sell off her possessions. So what is going to be left of Elizabeth? What, in terms of her identity, is she going to still have?
We have to keep in mind that love is sort of the great blinder, and that she may have felt at the time that she was sort of willingly doing what she needed to do, because at that point it was she and Angelo against the world.
The couple soon finds a new place in Ridgetown, 40 miles away from everyone they know.
So they move away, like they keep moving.
We sort of have increasing isolation from those to whom she's always looked for social support. All of those are indicators of an isolative process that can be dangerous, and it can indicate an underlying pattern of control that can become abusive very easily.
I think that friends and family should be gravely concerned at this point. Everything that Elizabeth stood for, the way she dressed, her horse, they're all gone. And she's now dedicated her entire life to one person.
But soon, her loved ones will get big news. News that might just explain the couple's odd behavior.
She was pretty excited about being pregnant.
After losing 2 jobs, the roof over their heads, and having to move, it looks like Elizabeth and Angelo's relationship is on the rocks. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, the couple, who have only known each other for 4 months, hosts a garden party at Elizabeth's mother's house in order to make an important announcement.
It was a beautiful day out. It was a good day.
I was shocked. I was shocked to learn that they had gotten married.
But there's even bigger news. Elizabeth announces she's pregnant, and Angelo is the proud father-to-be.
You just congratulate her, and like that's all you can do.
I hug her and I said, oh my gosh, you know, you won't be sorry. So I was happy for her.
They were very happy for me. They, of course, wanted to know when I was due and if I had picked out any names, and they were all excited for me, and they talked about, well, that was so out of my character, considering I never wanted to have kids.
But one thing outshines Elizabeth's smile at the party.
I just laughed and thought, what a joke that is.
It bothered me trying to explain to everyone how I could be pregnant and how I was so happy when I had a big black eye. And I knew how to pull the wool over people's eyes. It was one thing that Ange taught me how to do.
She'd say, oh, I fell down, or the horse kicked her, or the horse bit her, or the horse knocked her with her head.
After the party, people see less of Elizabeth and Angelo. When they do, it's more bruises, and more stories.
We had a big 2-horse trailer, and Angelo wanted to borrow it. He sent her to go and clean the bees out of the horse trailer. And she was like trying to swatting at all these bees. But being that she was pregnant, I mean, it would have been insane for her to go clean it out. So I think it was my husband that finally said to him, get your butt back there and clean that trailer out. What are you doing?
The stories that you heard, you figured that there's something up.
Tom tries to give his daughter a way out.
One night she called me up and I could tell, like in her voice, that there was something wrong. And I asked her. I said, is he hitting you? And she wouldn't say. So I said to her, you tell me. Because I'm only a short distance away, but nothing ever come out.
Elizabeth doesn't take her father up on his offer to help. And things only get worse. In August, Elizabeth is admitted to the hospital with life-threatening injuries.
I didn't think I was going to make it. I just chalked it up as I'm dead.
She is treated for bruising, swelling, a collapsed lung, and vaginal lacerations.
I was basically bleeding to death.
Elizabeth is given 7 units of blood. There are 12 in the average adult body. She tells doctors she was in a horseback riding accident.
Because of where my injury was, I told them that the horse had bucked and I had come down and landed on the saddle horn. And thus be why I had such a very large cut down there.
It seems completely inconceivable to me that the injuries that Elizabeth had at this point were adequately, reasonably, believably explained away by having fallen on a saddle horn.
Clearly, the abuse is getting more intense. That said, even the best counselor or hospital professional, they can lead that horse to water, but they can't make her drink. And so they can give her the tools, they can talk to her about leaving, but she's an adult, and if she wants to stay in that situation, she gets to stay in that situation.
Ange would not leave my side when I was at the hospital. He wouldn't let the doctors or the nurses talk to me by myself. I kept telling the doctors that I wanted to go home.
But back home, Elizabeth drops more bad news on her family.
That she had a miscarriage and she had lost the baby.
In September, less than 7 months into their relationship, Elizabeth and Angelo move again. This time to a house in Chatham, more than an hour's drive away.
He definitely had her move down to Chatham to keep her away from family and friends, I think.
When they moved to Chatham, I could not reach her anymore.
I never really seen her much after that.
Alma's nervous that Elizabeth isn't taking her calls. She phones Elizabeth's mother, Sandy Rudavsky.
Well, her mother didn't say very much. She said, oh, I hardly see her. That was her answer. You know, like, they don't come around that often anymore. Like, I hope she's all right.
Each step that we moved further and further away. I was slowly getting cut off from my family. In the process of moving further and further from home, it made it more and more difficult to see them, to be able just to take off and go for a visit.
I don't think anybody knew how bad it really was.
I think what we're seeing here is a classic pattern of progressive isolation. Escalating, isolating, very typical in situations like this.
Elizabeth is saying that everything is fine, everything's great in their relationship, that she's afraid if she tells people what's really happening, that Angelo might hurt her more.
there's a giant elephant in the room and nobody is wanting to acknowledge that it's there.
Then, on September 21st, Chatham police get an urgent call. There's been a stabbing at the couple's new address. Only this time, Angelo's in trouble.
He was laying on the front step when the police arrived.
Elizabeth tells police a burglar broke in. Angelo went to the door and was attacked. With Angelo in critical condition, Elizabeth braces for the worst.
We always thought we should have told her, but then if you told her, does she snap then, or does she know what she's married to? We thought maybe she knew what she was married to.
Angelo Headington is stabbed in the early morning hours of September 21st, 2002. He's rushed to the hospital.
I kept saying to Ange that he'll be okay, everything will be okay. And then, as I was being pulled away, I heard Ange say, "It was my wife." I had Ange's blood all over me. They wouldn't let me wash.
Elizabeth is taken into custody for further interrogation. The next day, the police tell Elizabeth that her husband has just been pronounced dead.
It had said that Ange had passed away. And that I was officially charged with first-degree murder.
What the detective says next is even more shocking. He tells her the name of her deceased husband is not Angelo.
The detective referred to Angelo as Angela. And I kept saying, no, his name is Angelo. And he asked me if I understood exactly what was going on. Ange was a girl.
The paramedics made an observation which led them to believe that the person who they believed was a male person was in fact a female person.
On their way to the hospital, the paramedics discovered a prosthetic penis under Angelo's clothes.
The police came to the door and said, "We have to talk to you. It's about your daughter." And there's something else, like, he is not a he, he's a she.
The story is everywhere, and Angelo's secret is the talk of the town.
How do you keep something like that quiet?
My son showed me the newspaper. I said, no, it cannot be.
People were quite shocked to find out that Angelo was a woman.
Not everyone is surprised, though. Horse dealer Nelson Billier says years before, he first knew Angelo as Angela.
A bunch of us were sitting around drinking beer, and she wandered up. And you can imagine guys about half drunk, and this thing walks up and lets on to us it's a guy. She was dressed like a guy, she acted like a guy, but she had earrings on. And I said to her, "Why would you wear earrings like that to the Western Fair?" And she says, "I am a girl."
Nelson had tried to tell people about Angelo, but nobody believed him.
And I told Kelly, I said, "You realize those are two girls."
I'm thinking, well, she's pregnant. There's no way. That's obviously a man.
Police struggle to understand how Elizabeth could have had an intimate relationship without knowing Angelo's biological sex. Elizabeth tells them what Angelo told her.
An ex-girlfriend got mad at him and burnt his genitals. And that's why he wasn't as a normal male. I never seen nothing. Things were dark. You just I never passed judgment. There's more to love than just sex. I thought I was in love.
I think it's completely possible that Elizabeth believed Angelo's story and then decided to respect his wishes and not touch him physically, because Elizabeth was so passive when it came to him. He had so much control over her that it would make sense that he had control in the world, he would have control in the bedroom as well.
In custody, Elizabeth quickly admits to killing Angelo. But she says she acted in self-defense.
It's like everybody else. If you're pushed to the limit, people protect themselves.
Her account of her 7-month relationship with Angelo is harrowing. The beatings began within a week of moving in with him.
I took one heck of a beating.
Soon, Angelo punishes Elizabeth for offenses such as making her meal portions too large.
Well, I tried to make it as even as possible, so then he would start taking food off my plate. Well, you're trying to lose weight, so you don't need all this food. The more I tried to fight back, the harder the beatings got, the more creative he got.
Elizabeth reveals the real reason she asked her brother to take her guns away. She feared for her life.
He had cocked the gun and pointed it right at my head and said, "Do you want me to pull the trigger and see if there's something in there?" As I'm looking down the barrel of my own gun.
And when she was hospitalized, she didn't fall on the saddle horn. She was violated with a metal pipe.
I was actually very shocked when Ange had put me in the truck to take me to the hospital. I figured I was just gonna be thrown in a ditch somewhere on the side of the road.
Police don't yet know if Elizabeth's claims are true, but it's clear the young woman is in rough shape.
There was a lot of physical features about her that supported the fact that she was being abused.
Elizabeth spends her 27th birthday in custody in Sarnia Prison. Dr. Peter G. Jaffe, an expert on domestic abuse, is brought in by Elizabeth's lawyer to assess her mental state.
I think what was unique about Elizabeth is the fact that she wasn't thinking about herself and whether she'd spend her life in jail. Her thinking was really all about Angelo and Angelo's family and what she had done.
In their sessions, Elizabeth reveals another truth to Dr. Jaffe. She isn't legally married.
It was very hard lying to my family. That was the biggest thing that hurt so much, because I have always been a very honest person.
She was never pregnant either.
I knew right off the bat that it was a bad thing to lie and say I was pregnant, and it hurt me more than people realize. But I also tried to let them know that I was doing what I needed to do at that time.
In the meantime, police learn Angelo has a dark history of violence. He stalked, beat, and starved at least 4 previous partners.
There was physical assaults. There was threats of violence. In each case, there was a lot of dramatic weight loss by the partners.
Actually, their stories are very similar to Elizabeth. Most abusers will have a series of victims in their lives. It's rarely one victim.
I always wondered why some of these women hadn't decked her or picked up a baseball bat or something.
The stories are difficult for Angelo's family to hear. Journalist Jennifer O'Brien interviews his mother, Marlene Headington, at length.
Marlene wanted people to know that Angelo wasn't always a monster and wasn't just evil to the core kind of thing. She was a tomboy, but a happy kid. Marlene said, you know, Angelo would be the first person to help you out of a ditch if you were stuck in a ditch.
But according to Marlene Headington, everything changed when Angela turned 14. She dropped out of school, found work as a farmhand, dressed as a guy, and answered only to Angelo.
She started saying, I am a boy, and this is a man's world, and I'm a man, I'm not a girl, I don't want to be a girl.
Could Angelo's behavior result from the traumatic experience of growing up as a trans person?
he hates femaleness. He hates female bodies, that intense loathing of female bodies, which for me has to come out of that experience as a 14 or 15-year-old trans person in the environment that he's in. On the one hand, wanting Elizabeth to be more feminine, and beating her up because she isn't. And on the other hand, doing everything he can to damage and scar her femaleness, her physical femaleness.
Gender dysphoria does not entitle you to defraud another person, to be dishonest with another person, to basically use another person to help you resolve your issue.
In a relationship, honesty is literally the foundation of success. And so the fact that he wasn't able to tell her the truth tells me that there may be other reasons and other things that weren't real about him.
Angelo made references to Elizabeth about, his sister Angela that had been sexually assaulted and was struggling with, her own sexuality in the aftermath. So one could speculate that Angela was really two people. There was an Angela that was a vulnerable victim of something terrible that happened when she was younger, and then there was an Angelo who was the male, aggressor, perpetrator, trying to compensate, or deal with the trauma that she had suffered earlier.
Whatever the origin of the violence she was victim of, it finally pushed Elizabeth over the edge. The details will soon be revealed in court.
Everything was still quiet, and then all of a sudden, he attacked me and started coming at me.
Elizabeth Rudavsky is in custody after stabbing her partner, Angelo Headington. After his death, police learn Angelo is really Angela, a woman living as a man. The court proceeding in April 2003 is only a day long.
There had been murders and there had been abuse cases, but nothing like this. I'm thinking, this is a movie.
For the first time, the public learns how Angelo was really killed. It starts when Angelo threatens the life of Elizabeth's 8-year-old niece.
We had a bit of an episode where he just argued with me, and we just argued back and forth. I was finally standing up for myself and telling him that I've had enough. I can't take this no more. I'm done. I just want out. He said that he would have my niece's head brought to me on a platter in the morning. And I was very confused on why he would harm a defenseless child in all this, that she had nothing to do with this. Just leave her alone. And he said no. He says to me, well, I think I'm gonna kill you and deal with your body in the morning. And then all of a sudden, he attacked me and started coming at me. Started grabbing me by the throat. I fought back.
She manages for the first time to escape. But Angelo catches up before Elizabeth can break free.
I don't remember doing any of this. It was like I was watching a movie. I just remember him saying, "You stabbed me."
Police say the evidence supports Elizabeth's version of events and her allegations of abuse.
We seized a vacuum cleaner pipe. There was DNA that we were able to extract from that pipe that supported allegations that Elizabeth had made.
I told the truth. It felt so good to finally get it out.
The court also hears a summary of Dr. Jaffe's report on her psychological state and why she couldn't leave Angelo.
Most people think, well, I could never be in that situation, give me, show me a crack in the door, I'm out of there so fast. But that's not the reality. Part of abuse is taking somebody down a very dark highway. So if an abuser gets a victim to tell one lie, then you're part of the scam. Then you feel even more trapped.
Elizabeth says her mental state also kept her from asking questions about Angelo's sexuality.
I'm not naive. I guess deep down I did know Angelo wasn't Angela. When you're put in certain circumstances and you're told and forced to believe certain things, your mind goes into a defense mode. You just learn to overlook people's flaws. You just learn to take things in stride, go with the flow, don't ask questions. People are who they are.
Defense mechanisms are very powerful things. You can truly convince yourself that what you think you're seeing, you're not. But I also think it might have been embarrassing for her. She might not want to have admitted that she maybe made a mistake and believed that Angelo was a man when he was genetically a woman.
I think Elizabeth probably loved Angelo, at least at the beginning. And it's hard to really know if Angelo loved Elizabeth as a person or loved the representation that Elizabeth provided of what Angelo wanted to be.
I don't think that Angelo is just a mean, evil person. I think that Angelo is deeply disturbed and doesn't know how to deal with his emotions, and he acts out because of it.
I think Angelo was a mean, evil person who was also disturbed.
There's another dimension here which I think was unique in the sense that Angelo was threatening not only to harm her, but also harm a niece of hers and, or harm her parents. So in that way, you're totally captive, because even if you can seek freedom, you might be endangering somebody else who you love.
I'm not one to call people's bluffs. Do you want to play Russian roulette with your family's lives? I didn't want to.
I don't think it was wrong that Elizabeth stabbed him. At the time of the stabbing, Elizabeth feared for her life.
I think Elizabeth is very lucky to be alive today. Who knows what Angelo might have done had she not killed him.
The judge, Crown prosecutors, and police investigators agree Elizabeth Rudavsky acted in self-defense when she killed Angelo Headington.
The only difference between women who kill and women who don't is the severity of the abuse that somebody's facing. The more severe the abuse, the more sexual abuse, the more threats to somebody's life, the more likely somebody is to kill ultimately in self-defense.
The murder charge against Elizabeth is dropped. Angelo's parents are said to support this decision.
Angela had lost her life as a result of being stabbed, and she has family, and they were deeply affected by that. But we could not ignore the fact that this was a very abusive relationship.
Marlene was quite emotional about it and very remorseful. She was remorseful, I think, over being unable to help her daughter. And also she was remorseful and regretful over not helping Elizabeth. She had said to me, she killed my daughter, but what other choice did she have?
10 years after these events, Elizabeth lives a normal life and has advice for other victims of domestic abuse.
As much as you think you're alone, you're not. It takes you to step up and say something if you're in danger.
I'm really glad that Elizabeth decided to tell her story, because I believe that she has been through a traumatic experience. And so it's my belief that her sharing what she went through is actually part of the process of getting better and not going through something like that again.
Obviously, one of the messages from what Elizabeth went through, it's a message to friends, family, neighbors, even co-workers, that victims need people to keep asking questions, to be supportive.
I really feel bad about it that I did not see it coming with Elizabeth, what was going through.
I think I just felt so guilty about not being able to help her.
In 2007, Elizabeth gets married. Sadly, her husband Mike dies of a heart attack shortly after the birth of their son, Luke.
Luke is part of Mike. That's what she's living for.
She just lived for that little kid, you know?
I don't know how she can be so strong.
I always question, why did I make it through this? I believe it was for Mike and Luke. Don't get these tears wrong, I'm happy.